overwhelm into manageable and practical tools for everyday use.
We are back. This is Catch Me Reading. Catch Me Reading. Oh, wait.
Here, I want a puppy dog.
I like the puppy dog. It would take me way too long to find out where all the filters are right now.
It's perfect.
Oh,
The puppy.
yeah. I'll just put it, I'll put a real puppy in my corner.
There you go. See, I can't have a puppy.
Yeah,
dog.
here. I'll just pop his head up randomly.
Perfect.
Oh, look at that. I like the puppy.
I don't know what that is though. Like the little things that are like sticking out of his mouth. Is he like smelling something? What is that?
Maybe
You see
he's
it right
smelling
there?
the flowers. I don't know. I'm
I don't know.
trying to investigate. I don't know. It's questionable.
All right. So here we are, right? Catch
Yeah.
me reading. And what are we taking a look at today? I heard it's one of your infamous audiobooks.
It sure is. Today, we're going to learn about What Happened to You? A Conversation on Trauma, Resilience, and Healing by Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. So this book was recommended to me by our friend Robin. She told me to give it a shot, give it a read. Of course, yeah, books on tape. It was just fine. So I found it and I finished it within a couple days. So that means it was pretty good. Because usually books take me a while. So we're going to go through that one today.
Okay, cool. So what's the premise of this book? I know this is, Oprah Winfrey is one of the authors with, not Tyler Perry, Bruce Perry.
Bruce.
I don't know why like when a name sticks in your head, you're like Tyler Perry. All right. All right. So what's the premise? What's the deal here?
So it's trauma is the whole story.
Did you hear that noise? It sounded like a chicken, or a turkey. Like a turkey.
Yeah.
What was that? Was that a turkey? That almost sounded like a cat crying.
I'm gonna open the window. Hold on.
All right, open the window. What is it?
It's either like a fox or a freaking raccoon. Hold on.
It's freaking out. Keep the screen closed though.
Uno momento, por favor.
All right. You guys can't see this, but Christina just stepped away from her computer and is now over by the window. Oh. What is that? What is that noise? Are they fighting?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's like the UFC for raccoons in my backyard. Not in my backyard, the neighbors.
Oh my God. They're really fighting. Can you see them? Or do you just hear them?
They're fucking massive raccoons.
Oh, you can see them.
Yeah, you can see them. Okay, I'm going to close so we can actually focus.
Wow.
Maybe.
That noise was like crazy. It sounded like the turkey noise at first, and then it got nutty. Holy cow.
So two huge raccoons fighting in a neighbor's backyard. I can see them. I could see two big blobs like rolling around, but it's only because there's snow on up back. Oh my God. Madness. This is madness. This is wild. But anyway.
Those raccoons definitely are going to have trauma to deal with.
Yeah. So I'll read them the book later.
Good idea.
I'll discuss trauma with them later. We'll have a counseling group for the raccoons. Oh my goodness. Yes.
Oh God.
So the premise of the book is trauma. So
okay, back at it. Here we go.
Back at it. So Oprah shares a lot about her personal experiences of trauma. She does a lot of listen, I'm not like a huge fan of Oprah. I don't follow everything she does. I'll just be very honest and transparent about that. But um, I have a lot of admiration for the fact that she put herself out there with this. So apparently her and Dr. Perry have worked together for years.
Okay.
And in this, it's like a conversation, at least in the audiobook, it's a conversation, her and Dr. Perry going back and forth about her personal experiences with trauma or experiences that she has
Oh, all right.
like kind of experienced on her show, right? So like she has so many guests that she's interviewed or they've shared their experiences. So she asks Dr. Perry very specific questions to discuss trauma. So it flows a lot like a conversation. And what they do the entire time is they reframe each of the questions, because what you always hear is, what's wrong with you? Like you present something to somebody, you go to the doctors, especially in mental health, you go to doctors and they're like, what's wrong with you? And in this book, it reframes it to ask, like, what happened to you? And
Okay.
that question rewinds the tape and says, let's go back to your childhood. Like, tell me what happened to you back then. And let's kind of dissect that. And they explain to you how, like, something like the ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences exam could help with something like that. Have you heard of ACEs? I don't know if they still do it in schools or not.
I have never heard of that.
Okay. So there's a adverse childhood experience, like little exam. It's not even an exam. It's like a page and a half. If you shrink the font, you can get it on one page. It's a couple questions. You answer these questions about abuse and neglect, and you answer the questions and how often, like if you've experienced anything before you
Okay.
were at the age of 18, you check it off, right?
Okay.
So the higher the number of score you have, the greater risk you are for poor health outcomes later in life.
Okay.
So like Dr. Perry and Oprah discuss your childhood experience and how that impacts you later in life. And it's not necessarily what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you, like your experiences, what you were exposed to in the environment that you grew up in. What were you genetically born with? You know, trauma is genetically, like we're born with the trauma from our mothers. You know, it's passed down. And there's science that shows that you can link that just by behaviors. And there's a lot of science conversation in there, which it's not my thing. So it kind of goes over my head. I had to look at a lot of the figures in there to make sense of some of this stuff, because it's very hard when they're talking. When you're listening to the book and you don't have anything to look at and you're kind of like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of different reasons and a lot of different ways trauma can impact you later in life. And it's not something that was necessarily spoken about before until recently. And Dr. Perry and Oprah are trying to bring it to light.
Okay. So I'm fascinated by the fact that I'm born with like carrying my mother's trauma, because whoa. I mean, like, think about all of the, like generational stuff, right? So like really that implies like the nature versus the nurture argument of development, right? If you're born with certain things, like what I don't know. I guess we don't have to get into that, but I can't fathom that it's what you're born. Like you're born with the color eyes and hair, texture and skin color and all that stuff. I guess the development of your brain and your emotional health seems so much more like it would be a nurture type of thing than a nature type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The response.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm I believe in both nature and nurture. When we talk about the transmission of genetic trauma, I go right to Oma, and then I go to mom, and then I go to me. And I think of, Oma coming over here the way she did, when she did, and her experience in life and the adversity that she faced through life. And then I think of her relationship with my mom and the way they interact and engage.
Right.
And then I think, and I look at, because, a lot of what I do in social work, and, even when I got my bachelor's in psychology, like, you still personalize a lot of this stuff. So it has to make sense to you in some way.
Right.
At least that's how I learn this stuff best. So when I think about the genetic transmission, like, I immediately think of Oma and mom, and then I think of myself.
Yeah.
And I think of, the time spent in mom's womb, and like everything that she carried from Oma's womb that Oma was experiencing at the time that she was pregnant with my mom, which was in Germany, escaping Germany to come here, and all these things, and predisposing mom to mental health risks that perhaps wouldn't be there if Oma was here and stable.
Other circumstances.
And didn't have the stress level, the anxieties, the apprehensions of coming to a new country, not knowing how to speak English,
Right.
maybe a little more nurturing, different variables, because all of that, believe it or not, plays into the nature role too. Like, they go hand in hand, very much so.
Yeah.
So this book kind of breaks it down more in a scientific way. So it's good for people that want that scientific evidence to prove you right or wrong either way, because he'll even say, if there's no evidence, he'll say, well, it leans towards, but there's no evidence to back it up. Right.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to ask you. So who are people that should read this book? Would you recommend people to read this book? Anybody in particular? Would you recommend certain people not to read it?
Listen, I think everybody think mental health is huge. Anybody taking care of kids,
Right.
like we were talking before, anybody that has children in their care and wants to know what to look for a little more in depth, because you may be looking for something like ADHD or ADD, whatever, and kind of glazing over some of the bigger things that are, hidden a little deeper. So this will give you a deeper dive into that. I don't think it's good for every parent. Listen, like, if you're not doing the work on yourself, then what is it going to do for you? Right? Like, it's not going to help you with your children because you're not putting in the work for yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I don't recommend it. Yeah, I would say everybody to read it, but not for the people that aren't putting in the work. Be great to say to end the cycle of trauma and all that stuff, but that's not realistic, because children get traumatized. Even adults get traumatized regularly. This will give you a well-rounded look at what trauma looks like, how people present with trauma, what it does to our brain, how the environment responds to it, what human connection looks like within it, how we can benefit from the human connection, how stress can be beneficial, how it could be detrimental. It just gives you everything.
I'm fascinated by the concept of trauma because I don't really understand it, I guess, is part of the reason, because so from my perspective, I teach high school kids, right? So
Mhm.
the beginning of this year, we had somebody come in and professional development about trauma informed instruction, which I don't know what the hell that even means, frankly, after sitting there and listening to somebody talk about it for 4 hours. I don't even know what
Really hard. Yeah.
what trauma informed. I don't even know what that really. So I guess my point is that, like you said, if it's not something that you understand at all or don't know what it is,
Mhm.
how could you possibly I don't know, maybe you could gain something out of it by understanding what what it is, I guess, more than anything. But
Yeah. It's good to explore it, but it's not I mean, the 4-hour, I guess,
yeah,
education is better than nothing, but
right.
trauma informed anything is like you need to be extensively trained on. Like I'm not even extensively trained on it. I would love to be.
Yeah.
Um, but
So I just did a cursory Google search while we were sitting here, because once you said ACEs, I was like, it I never heard, I don't know, like I didn't recognize it, but then when I looked it up and you said it's like a adverse childhood experience, I was like, maybe I did see this before. And
yeah,
then it reminded me of this professional development. But anyway, long story short, um just like I said, cursory Google search of,
mhm,
informed trauma informed instruction. And as an educator, it talks about like things like, um, a misconception is that trauma informed instruction is not just about like somebody's ACE score, that there's, um, that like as educators, we have to look at the influences that impact students, like from, um, their community, like explicit and implicit like bias, like racism, like
mhm.
microaggression, poverty, like all these different things. So they listed a bunch of stuff that now I'm like, okay, this makes sense now in a social setting, in terms of, because like when I was thinking about it from the way you were describing the book, I'm thinking of trauma as a, more of function, like you were saying, of our like family relationship, right? Like what kind of trauma occurs there. But I guess trauma can be extensive in other ways too, like societal trauma, so to speak.
Yeah, trauma can look different to everybody. So something like let's just talk about like me and you being females, you know. There
Yeah.
could be a situation that we're engaged in. We go out clubbing, right?
Uh-huh.
We go out back in the day, we go clubbing. We experience an interaction with a guy that's extremely uncomfortable. I'm fine. I handle it, right? I tell
Right.
him to back off. We're good. We get out of there safely. For you, it's extremely traumatizing. This is not your personality, but perhaps your personality isn't geared towards that. Like my behavior towards him, his behavior towards us was all traumatizing to you. That entire experience
Right.
was traumatizing for you because of the way you were raised,
Mm-hmm.
the environment you're raised in, your biological makeup, your psychological makeup. Like there's so many factors that make up who you are, that any situation, it doesn't just have to be in the home. They happen to be talking about childhood trauma because a lot of the times we don't realize as adults how much our childhood influences the way we behave, think, feel, and everything else as adults. Like
Right.
we'll react to something, we'll behave a certain way and be like, why did we just do that?
Yeah.
And if you dig back and you say, why? If you answer the first why and you're like, I did it for this reason, and then you go, well, why? And you keep digging, it stems from something from when you were a kid, right? And that's why they're talking about it. But trauma can look so different from so many people and hit you
Right.
no matter where. It's
Right,
not
right,
just
right.
in the home, you know?
Yeah.
So it's good that they're talking about it in schools, but trauma informed anything is so hard and takes years of practice and years of experience. And
Well, that is the one thing that I do remember. I'll tell you that much is that I do remember them saying, which because every time we do anything for 4 hours, I always think to myself, it's like a 4-hour chunk of my day that
yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like nothing, you can't learn anything in just a simple 4 hours, like never touch it again kind of thing. So
Yeah.
anyway, long story short, I just remember them saying that it's like a journey of learning. It's not like you learn it today and that's it. These are the skills to deal with it kind of thing. It's just, it's a constant, like, you know, the other thing that I do remember from the entire day, which I guess is a big takeaway in my mind, was that the one thing that that we got to with something we read was that you, in dealing with somebody who is traumatized, that like the big thing is like being open to just listening and asking, you know, like asking questions of yourself before like implying anything or saying anything or judging anything or doing all that. So like asking like if I was responding like that, would I want someone to like say something to me, or would I want them to give me space, or would I want them to, you know what I mean? Like almost like just take a beat before you respond to somebody because you don't know what has led to that response. Do you know what I mean? Like, that was the big thing that I was like, okay, so don't just jump to a conclusion that, oh, this kid just acted like that because they're this or that or whatever. Like just take a beat, give yourself a minute and think like, you know, it could be 8 million other things that have gone on that have created this response. Anywho, we've gotten way off the topic of the book, but here we go.
Well, I wanted to add to what you were just saying and say that that's a great point. And there's a reason that people react certain ways when they're experiencing trauma or stress or anxiety or anything of the like. So the one thing I do like about the book, even though it gets science heavy a lot of the times, because Dr. Oh my goodness, Dr. Perry. Yeah, Tyler Perry. I was going to say Tyler Perry. I'm like, wait, Tyler, no, it's Perry. Yeah. So he talks a lot about like the 4 parts of the brain. So the higher up you are, it's the smarter portion of the brain. So there's the brain cortex, the limbic, and then I was ready for this. So this is the 3rd part. Ready? Hopefully you'll be able to hear this. Why is it playing through my phone? It's playing through my computer. I'm going to butcher it.
Spell it.
Did it play?
No, I didn't hear it. Spell it. How do you spell it?
We're turning off the Bluetooth. I'll spell it for you. DIECANPHALON.
DIECAN?
No, DIENC. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Hold on, I got 2 different spellings. Now I'm on Google. DIE.
DIE.
NCE.
NCE.
PHA.
PHA.
LON.
Dinecephalon? Dinecephalon? I don't know how to say it. What is that? That's a part of the brain? I never even heard of that before. What kind of crazy talk is that?
Why isn't it saying it?
Says,
oh,
there it was.
Diencephalon.
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 Okay.
Diencephalon.
Diencephalon. So that's the 3rd. That's the 3rd layer of the brain, and then the brain stem.
Hold on. So the diencephalon is the small part of the brain that's mostly hidden from view when you're looking at the outside of the brain. It's divided into 4 parts: the epithalamus, the thalamus, the subthalamus, and the hypothalamus.
Yes. And it's
Okay.
responsible for arousal, sleep, appetite, and movement.
Perfect.
It's not the smartest part of the brain. The smartest part of the brain is the cortex.
Right.
It's also not the dumbest part of the brain. The dumbest part is the brainstem, which is responsible for temperature, respiration, and cardiac.
Yeah, that's the stuff that's automatic.
Yeah. So what they're fighting again. So what I was going to say in relation
They're mating.
to what
Hopefully they're mating.
maybe that's what it is. We'll have to look up. We'll end this episode with how raccoons mate.
The history, or the mating habits of raccoons.
That's
all right.
So what I was saying when you were sharing the impacts of the impact the environment has on the individual who has experienced trauma. When you're working with them, you work from the bottom up, like the bottom of the brain up, because you want to regulate them first.
Right.
You want to make sure that they're calm, and then you want to relate to them, which is what you're saying. So
well,
you're taking that pause, and then you're relating to them, and then you're reasoning with them. So you're trying to like uncover or figure out next steps, right? Your crisis management from there.
I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, if you think about like a baby, when a baby like freaks the hell out, like the first thing you do is calm them. Like you check all the things that could potentially make them freak out, right?
Yeah.
It's just like dealing with a toddler or a 7-year-old or a teenager. Like there's no reasoning until they relax, till you get them to calm down and are able to, at least have a relatable conversation.
Yep.
And then once they can do that, I mean, that makes total sense. I mean, you think about dealing with your own kids when they freak out, like, totally get that.
Yeah. And the other point I want to make is that if a child experiences a ton of adversity and there's very little connection, like if they have very little human connection at home or in the school, because believe it or not, if they don't have human connection at home, they seek it at school. So if they have it at school or they have it at like a friend's house or something like that, they have better outcomes. They don't have it anywhere, then they're at an increased risk for developmental issues, and then also very high risk for poor outcomes, health outcomes. So,
I mean, that makes sense too. Like I have kids in school that you can tell that they don't have much interaction with family members because they're constantly trying to have conversations with me. Like not a lot of kids, but there are a handful that they're looking for somebody to just listen to them or, have a conversation where they are given attention.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a good book. It's an enlightening book for somebody that's kind of just starting off on the trauma, but you'll get lost at times too. Just like be okay with the unknown and go back and read it and dissect it, and you'll be good. Yeah. This is. I'll tell you what. I don't even know where it is, but there's another book on trauma that does a much deeper dive. And that was a much easier read.
Yeah.
This does a lot, like that has a lot of real life examples and kind of digs in a little bit more.
Okay.
Your Body Keeps a Score. That's the name of it. But this one is more of like a brain, like it dissects the brain a little bit in trauma, and it's a much shorter read. So
nice.
Yeah,
cool.
It's good. All
right. So out of 5 stars, what are we giving it?
4.
Oh,
I'm going to 4. Yep.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So it's called What Happened to You? Conversations about something.
Conversations on trauma, resilience, and healing.
There you go. The subtitles are too much for me. I can only remember a few words. Okay, cool. And it's Oprah Winfrey and Dr. Bruce, not Tyler, Bruce Perry. are the authors. So Catch Me Readin has given it 4 stars, people. We should try to get some stars on our YouTube, on our video. So I do want to share what's the matter. Are your raccoons doing it?
When mating.
I was just gonna read it.
Okay, go ahead. You read it.
For babies to adults, you may hear raccoons growl, snarl, purr, or snort. When mating, raccoons scream. It can sound as if they're fighting. If you hear these types of noises between January and May, it's likely you'll have a litter of raccoons about 63 days later. So look for your raccoons in 2 months, my friend. Oh, it's awesome. All right, guys. Awesome. We gotta go. Christina's gotta chase the raccoons out of
I
her
gotta
yard.
go find the raccoons and get them the hell out of here. No more babies.
That is awesome. I love it.
Welcome to my world. Oh my goodness.
Oh, great.
Oh, yes.
That is awesome.
You
All
have
right,
little
folks.
humans. I have little raccoon furry humans.
There you go.
I mean, furry raccoon things.
Baby raccoons.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. That's it for Catch Me Reading. We'll catch you on the next exhale, right?
Yep.
Yeah, buddy. Deuces.
Deuces.